A huge welcome to my second guest, Bruce Large, BFL.
Thank you.
The man, the legend himself, is here today.
No, thank
How
you.
are you, Bruce?
Yeah, good, mate. Good.
Great.
No, it's lovely to be here. Thanks.
And I will say, Bruce, you're pretty well known around town. You do a lot of volunteering. ASA, Engineers Australia, B-Sides, SABSA. Tell us a little bit about yourself. And
No, I think I have a volunteering problem. So I've been doing cybersecurity technology for about 15 years, maybe just over 15 years. Currently work at PowerLink, which is a high voltage transmission network service provider. And probably just to start, these are my own views. They don't represent PowerLink, so please don't sue me. Please don't sue PowerLink. I work within operational technology, cybersecurity. I kind of describe people that I do security architecture principally.
Yes.
And at the moment at PowerLink, working in OT security operations.
yeah, but you're also a leader, a manager in that area.
Yeah, a new team leader. Yeah, it's been quite interesting. I'd probably just add to make the joke, security architecture enthusiast and infrastructure tourist. And I've just recently added cyber hype guy because I do some emceeing and talk to people, but it's a great community. Yeah,
it is a great community, and so today we're going to talk about operational technology, security, critical infrastructure, and how people can break into that area and opportunities in that area.
Definitely.
And I guess first of all, it might be maybe you could cover off and talk to us about the difference between operational technology and critical infrastructure.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's a good one. They are related. So operational technology is all the technology that controls things in the physical world, right?
Yep.
And if you think about critical infrastructure, things like, electricity, water, gas networks, transport networks, all those kind of things, they're all big physical processes, right? So the way I look at it is operational technologies are the core of critical infrastructure, but a lot of OT systems rely on critical infrastructure systems and rigor and processes.
Yep.
I think we're going to touch on it, but things like the Security of Critical Infrastructure Act, very important in this industry, right?
So operational technology, examples of that are SCADA networks.
Yep.
What other examples of?
Yeah, so you've kind of got, so SCADA, supervisory control, and data acquisition.
Yep.
You also have things like PLCs, programmable logic controllers, DCS, distributed control systems.
Yep.
And kind of emerging technologies, things like industrial Internet of Things.
Yep.
I wouldn't say Internet of Things, that's a way to trigger OT people. But
Why is that?
Oh, they're just different. Yeah. So to me, IoT is a really, really broad industry, right? It's things like smart fridges, home automation.
This is the Internet of Things.
Yeah. And it's exciting, but they are different to OT. So there's a lot more, there's a lot of difference in, say, the engineering.
So OT and IoT, completely different.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, no, there's a joke about little I, big OT.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but no, they are different. And it's the context, right? And the engineering and those things around it. We talk about things like the Purdue model, which is a kind of a reference architecture. And, IoT might be monitoring, heating, cooling, those kind of things. IoT should not be controlling. If it's controlling and it can impact safety, it really needs to be engineered and it really needs to be operational technology.
Yeah, so OT is what we're talking about
today. Yeah, definitely, yeah.
With the Critical Infrastructure Act or bill, is it an act or a bill? A bill, it's an act now, isn't it? It's been passed.
Yeah, I'm probably going to get people making fun of me, but I'm pretty sure it's a bill when it enters Parliament.
Yes.
And when it's passed by Parliament, it turns into an act.
And it's an act now, yeah. And so there is, it covers a number of different organisations, and the obvious ones being power, energy.
Gas. Yep.
Which is the same thing. Utilities. Utilities, but also FMCG, fast moving consumer goods. Is it your supermarkets?
It's got groceries,
Groceries, yeah.
So it has transport, groceries, financial,
I
think payments, data processing. So I guess
quite far-reaching.
Yeah, the original SOCI 2018, I kind of call it the OG, original gangster OT. So it was water, electricity, gas, and ports,
Yes.
and any other asset deemed a critical asset by the minister.
Mm-hmm.
I think the current SOCI's 2021, the amendment started, slack up those kind of things. It expanded the scope and it became more around impact to the economy, impact to GDP. Interestingly, like organisations, industries like tertiary education and research are now part of SOCI, which obviously kind of really expands that industry scope now.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay. What does SOCI stand for?
Security of Critical Infrastructure Act.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think I've heard some people say SOCI, but I say SOCI. So,
SOCI, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
But I think it's really good, the new version of SOCI. It talks about risk management plans, RMPs, and the fact that they're 4 different domains: cyber, physical, supply chain, and personnel.
Yep.
And it talks about those interactions of domains. So the original SOCI was more around understanding ownership and being able to declare what assets were critical.
Okay. When you say the original SOCI,
The 2018, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the amendments now are giving kind of a bit more structure and risk management and really giving a good baseline that we can all work towards.
yeah. And what has that meant for cybersecurity, information security?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
So if you look at the risk management plans, it talks to you can have applicable frameworks.
Yep.
One of those, AES-CSF, Australian Energy Sector Cybersecurity Framework.
Yep.
But it also talks to things like Essential 8, I think 27001. So
Yep.
it actually helps organisations navigate, potential frameworks. And I think it helps broader organisations that have been included to think about, well, are we doing the right amount? Are we investing the right amount?
Yes.
And I think it's just a good tool. So I think maybe just as an aside, in the electricity industry, we have the AES-CSF, which I think was introduced in 2018. And that's been a really great framework to establish common terminology and structure, and helps us as an industry kind of be able to describe things consistently, right?
Yeah. And so the knock-on effects of the changes, the amendments to the Act on security, or the security industry, are that these organisations are investing in technologies, investing in people. What is the?
Yeah, I think so.
How do you, I mean, that's very simplistic, but
I think for some it gives it just gives security personnel something that they can fall back to or reference with management on like we have to do this.
Okay, so here's a question for you. Yeah. If without the SOCI Act, would we have seen the amount of investment in security from organisations anyway?
Yeah, it's a great question. Now, it's this interesting, the threat landscape actually informs regulation. So the reason we're having this is because of the threat landscape.
Yep.
But I think what we're seeing with SOCI now is it's a great leveler across critical infrastructure. I think it's fair to say, safe to say, electricity is actually quite ahead because we have had AES-CSF compared to other industries that have not had that direction. I think another good thing about SOCI is it's consistent nationally. So if you look at critical infrastructure, there's actually different regulators in different states.
Yes.
So in Queensland, we have the Queensland Competition Authority, QCA.
Yes.
Whereas in, say, New South Wales, they have IPART, I think the Independent Pricing and Regulatory Tribunal.
Okay.
They actually set different standards, right? And then there's also, if you're foreign-owned infrastructure,
yes,
the Foreign Investment Review Board, the FIRB, they also have conditions. So there's actually a lot of different structures, and I think SOCI brings it together. I saw an interview with, I think it's Mike Pizzullo, the Director of Home Affairs in, I think it's Home Affairs, and a really awesome thing about SOCI, it's a framework that brings together other frameworks. So unfortunately, some security frameworks, the goalposts are always moving, but with SOCI, it kind of allows us all to come to a common position.
Yeah. And how has that landscape changed over the last 10 to 15 years, last 20 years, the OT landscape? We've seen a big change in the last few years.
Yeah, it's interesting. So we'll hear the term convergence thrown around, right?
Okay.
So this idea of like, oh, okay, there's all this IT inside of OT. A lot of that actually happened probably in the early 2000s. We saw bespoke electronic systems move to human-machine interfaces, HMIs, on top of Windows, for example. Mm-hmm. But I'd say probably in the last maybe 5 years, we're seeing a convergence of teams. So we're seeing IT teams and engineering teams come together.
Yes.
And there are benefits and there are pain points with that. But I think, when we talk about convergence, we tend to talk about the support and operating models. Interestingly too, right, if you think about, so I'm a telecoms engineer, recently registered telecoms engineer.
Yep.
Most people, if they study electrical engineering, don't want to do Windows Active Directory administration, right? So there's actually opportunities for working with IT. One of the problems is just when each side don't really get each other, and
yes.
There's different priorities, different drivers.
And is that a big problem? At the moment
culture. I'd say so. I'd say so, and that's why I'm very keen to go back to uni or be active in the community to try and teach engineers.
Maybe we can explore a little later on. We can explore the types of experience and background
definitely
people come from.
Yep.
But I was keen to find out really how is OT, experience in OT security different from experience in IT security?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think so. As much as I hate talking about the CIA triad, confidentiality, integrity, availability, there is a difference, right?
What's that? The CIA
triad, yeah. So if you've ever studied CISP and those kind of things, confidentiality, integrity, availability, the CIA triad. So typically in IT, we see a lot of emphasis on data security or information security. In OT, we tend to care more about integrity, availability. So IT tends to be data-centric.
Yes.
Yeah, we have sensitive data. We want to access controls who has access to that data. We don't want to be breached. OT systems tend to be systems of systems, and we're more interested in things working appropriately, not being disrupted, not being offline. So there's a real tension there. Also, the tools and the type of technology are different, right? So if you think about IT, probably like most IT systems, maybe a 3 to 5 year, average life. Yes, we all do have our end of life, systems that run everything.
Yep.
But in OT, they tend to be, say, a 30, 40, 50 year life. So there's very different timeframes and different engineering and different economics, right? So IT, you tend to have more outage windows. OT tends to be we run it until we get to a big outage window and we put everything into that outage window.
Yeah, and so you're looking at some assets that are 40, 50 years old.
Yes.
And try to secure them.
Yeah, and obviously very different, threat models, maybe not even threat modeling, and just different risk appetites, right? And then because of their criticality, how do you actually get access to update them, modify them, and in some cases at significant expense?
Yep. Yeah. So in your experience, is it common for the OT security to sit within IT security, or to be separated, or to sit within, I guess, the business in engineering? What's the common structure that we see?
I don't know the numbers, but I've seen both. And I've seen organisations that converge, and I've seen organisations that separate. Mm-hmm. And I've been in organisations that converge and organisations that separate.
And have you got a view on what works best?
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons to each, but I think the key is having that understanding and context and kind of not turning into the political games, right? So I think if there's mutual trust and each party understands the position and benefits and context of each other, it can work great. I think there's real value in particular industries, organizations that might be, say, leaning into things like cloud or those kind of things, that IT and OT working together is great. But I think it's also very important that people understand, what's a professional engineering service, which is a legislative thing in Queensland, the Professional Engineering Act, and that, we have the people with the right competence working in the right area. But I think it's important that we kind of both understand each other's view, and we come back to things like risk and our,
So you are talking about two separate, you keep saying we both, so the separate areas.
Yes. So
separate disciplines.
Yep. And I've worked in some that are separated.
Yeah.
But I have colleagues, peers that work in some that are combined.
So is OT security a discipline of operational technology or a discipline of IT security?
Yeah. Again, I think it really depends. So some organisations, the CISO will be tasked, hey, like, how are we managing risk in this environment? And there's definitely some of those companies in Brisbane. Other companies, it might be a chief engineer or a chief operating officer who understands, hey, like, if I look at the risks in my business, well, this business revenue exists because of OT.
Yep.
And in some areas, engineering's great. So things like management of change, if you think about, say, the oil and gas industry, you think about process safety, there's actually a lot of really great hygiene that actually supports cybersecurity. But then also, depending on your technology stack, there might be lots of people in your business that are actually great at, say, automation or cloud engineering or those kind of things that OT could leverage.
Yep. Typical backgrounds of OT security specialists?
Yeah, I'd have to have a look. So definitely a resource I find useful is the SANS State of OT ICS Cybersecurity report. Like myself, I studied telecoms engineering. There's people in my team that don't have an engineering degree or even a degree. Some do, some are from IT. I know people in industry that have studied, say, computer science.
Yes.
And then there's really wide, diverse backgrounds. There's also a very valid and, let me just think, scratch my nose. There's a very valid and awesome feature-rich experience of people who've come through a trade. So people who've worked as, say, an electrician or instrumentation control electrician, things like that, because they really understand.
So let's pick up on that then. People that come from a trade like that, what can they do if they've got an interest in security to upskill and to...
It's actually a very interesting space. So in the US, Siemens Energy and some other companies are actually championing cybersecurity apprenticeships. And I'm currently speaking with people at, like, say, TAFE Queensland on like, how do we build a vocational pathway into cybersecurity, be it a traineeship or an apprenticeship. So there are programs at the moment, I think, through Queensland Government on Cert 4 in information security, and even, I think, grad certs of information security. So, so I think what we're trying to find is pathways that aren't just go to uni or study a CISP or, go do some certs. I think the other point on that is, it's not just tertiary education, right? Like, it could actually be, say, SANS, or it could be, I'm a big fan of, say, CompTIA Security Plus.
SANS is very expensive, though.
It is. It is. And it's
the CompTIA Plus, that's not too bad, is it?
No, that's a lot. Yeah, and other things too, like in Queensland, if you have a Queensland driver's license, if you go to the State Library at Queensland, you can register for free LinkedIn Learning, which is a great resource. The SANS stuff, it is expensive, but it's also really high quality and value.
And you can get free snippets of that on YouTube, I think, can't you?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And I think this is one of the most awesome things about SANS is there's just so many community resources. If you go, like, just Google, like, SANS ICS, Industrial Control Systems, you'll see there's, like, posters, field guides. If you go to YouTube, the SANS ICS channel, you can see videos from me, videos from other people, from what their ICS summits.
So start off with somebody that's maybe coming from a trade, or even coming from, they might have done 2 or 3 years in another area of IT security or IT, and firstly they've got a passion and are really interested in taking a step into the security realm, security side of things. What What do you think is the most important thing?
Yeah, you reminded me. It's on my big to-do list to write a LinkedIn article.
What skills do you think are important? I guess that's what I'm getting at. So soft skills and technical skills are going to make a successful, and because we're talking about OT security here, successful OT security analyst or architect or, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a common question. I'm quite a big fan of Rob M. Lee, CEO, co-founder of Dragos. I've had a few chats with Rob, and one of the things they do, they're obviously a US kind of company, but they ask people like, oh, do you like this show called How's It Made? Like the equivalent in Australia are things like Mighty Factories or Mega Ships or whatever. But that curiosity of just cyber physical systems, right? I make the joke, I'm an infrastructure tourist. My poor wife, Jess, whenever we go somewhere, like, oh, look at that, look at that comms tower, look at that electrical system. But I think having that genuine curiosity of what's this system, how does it work, how's it impacted? I mean, personally, I love going to control rooms. They are the coolest places in the world. Yeah. So, I think having curiosity, and you touch on things like soft skills. So I think importantly, especially for IT people moving into OT, is to kind of just not quickly jump to conclusions and maybe have some empathy and try to understand like, hey, these guys aren't idiots. Like, there's probably a reason they've done this, and digging into that. Again, another kind of Robin Lee joke is, box of donuts and case of beer, right? And talk to the operators. And, most OT people love talking about their OT. So showing a genuine interest and going and, walking the line or seeing what the process is will go a long way.
Yeah. And there is, we know that there is a huge talent gap, or
there is,
in broader security, but in OT, very much so, right? The demand over the last 12, 18 months has increased substantially, and it's very hard, and you're going through it yourself. Yeah,
definitely. Yes, no, would recommend Decipher Bureau.
So how do we go about changing that? What can we do? What can government do? What can companies do? What can society do?
Well, and I think we're seeing this increase because of the changing regulatory space,
yes.
Right? I think about, I was started in railways and bounced around and changed jobs and whatever, and I think about just the awareness of operational technology security then compared to now. Excuse me. So I think about like my background, right? I started as a telecoms engineer in the railways in 2006, I think it was, a long time ago. There's a lot less interest in security, right? And just over time, we're now seeing not only just a cybersecurity person, but an OT cybersecurity person and even an OT cybersecurity team. So we're in this situation now where we're all trying to get people from a limited pool. So I know, we've gone through this when we've done some recruitment with Decipher Bureau. It's not about like demonstrated experience, but very much about, do you have an interest? Do you have, a capability? Do you want to learn? And I think that's key, right? So as an industry, how do we actually give more of those entry-level positions? And when we say entry, it's not your traditional like IT entry job. And I think we got to be careful on like asking for entry level with like 5 years experience.
Yeah, which is common, right?
Exactly. It doesn't quite compute. But we're also in this situation where we don't have a lot of people. So how do we actually grow and not smash people? So I think one thing I do, that's why I volunteer Engineers Australia and go back to universities and talk to future engineers of, the more you do the security early in the process, the better. So, rather than retrofitting, I like there's this, I can't remember I heard the example, but if we think about how we teach people, say, to be electricians, from day one, we teach them how to be safe when, working. In software, we tend to just have maybe a security elective at the end of your degree. So I think we do need to find ways to embed security into existing processes. And I mean,
and that's starting to happen, but obviously
it is. And at my work, like
lag.
A lot of people are interested, and it's just helping them with like, these are good resources, these are good frameworks. These are good examples, use cases, and pointing people in that direction. And I mean, it'll get better, right?
Oh, absolutely, it'll get better. Yeah. Are there any events that you can talk about, or meetups, or conferences that are maybe worth people that are interested in OT security looking at? Yep.
So like locally, IoT Skater Hackers, big shout out to Josh and the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so you can get onto that on Meetup.
Meetup.com. Yep. Yeah, and awesome. Like Josh does fantastic work for the community.
Yep.
I think he said he's presented like 95% of all the sessions.
Right.
So he's definitely looking for volunteers if you're keen. I've done it before. It's fantastic.
Yep.
And then in terms of conferences, things like B-Sides Brisbane.
Yes.
There's a ICS OT kind of capture the flag.
Okay.
I don't know, room experience. And then, things like SANS, ICS Summit, really great. They run one in Singapore and US, but they are generally, the videos put on YouTube for free. Also, I'd really recommend people to go check out the S4 on-ramp and highway. And I think I'll just send you some links that you can put in when we do the actual show. But the on-ramp and highway series are kind of 45-minute intro videos that Dale Peterson and the team at S4 have done. Okay. So S4 is a conference that runs in Florida. Really great material. And like I mentioned, the SANS ICS YouTube page has really good content. So recordings from ICS summits, people like Dean Parsons who make awesome content and just put it out into the community.
But there's no specific educational pathway, is there? As in, we now have degrees in and
maybe not
grad
degrees.
diplomas in cybersecurity, but we don't have them in OT.
No, and so in SANS there is a ICS curriculum. So I've studied SANS ICS 515, which is active defense for operational technology, ICS, the grid certificate. I've also just recently done SANS ICS 612, which is applying cybersecurity defense in depth. And I'm just in the process of doing my SANS ICS 410, which is the introduction to OT cybersecurity. I've also actually done some training on pen testing for OT, which is from the Control Things group. So if you go to controlthings.io, assessing and exploiting control systems, really great training. And I think when it comes to tertiary education, I'm actually interested in how could you say have a grad cert in OT cybersecurity?
Yeah.
So as a pathway for, say, you've studied IT and online OT, or maybe you've done electrical engineering and you want to focus.
But there isn't anything that we're aware of at the moment. I don't think there is there?
No. I do know UNSW have a system engineering master, and it has electronic warfare and I think maybe cybersecurity. There is actually an ADFA master of cybersecurity. I believe it might have an OT ICS unit, but I'd have to check that. And then if you look at OT vendors, they do have specific training. So, say, company SEL, Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories, they do have some training.
So this is training that people can access, or is this training for employees?
It's employees, So it's more depending on the OT company you work with. So Siemens, SEL.
So, but there's definitely an element of what we've talked about there is self-learning. And then there's an element where you know it's self-learning, but you need to pay for it. And then there's stuff that is provided by companies. So there's starting to be more and more content that people can access.
And I completely forgot too. There's actually ICS Cert in the US.
ICS Cert.
Yes, has virtual learning platform, the VLP.
Is that
that's
cost?
Free.
That's free.
No, that's free.
So there is free resources. So say we've got somebody that's passionate, wants to do it, interested in OT, critical infrastructure. They know where they can self-learn and they can do a bit of that. They do that. What do they then do? Where's the opportunities? Where's the apprenticeships? Where's the internships? And this is a broader question across the whole of the security landscape at the moment. Teams are massively short of resources, so they struggle to have time to be able to invest into training new entrants.
Yeah, this is the pathway problem.
So the pathway is the big problem. So the resources are there to follow.
Yep.
But then when you come out of it, and I hear this all the time from grads, from career changes, many of which are meetups, and they're passionate about it and they want to do it, and they're doing the self-learning. They just can't find that opportunity.
Yeah, something.
What can we do?
Yeah, something I'd kind of give advice for is it's actually good to look at the kind of jobs you do want to work in.
Yep.
And then backing out from, say, those job ads, those position descriptions, what skills they're looking for. I think we do have a problem in the industry at the moment of some of the education outfits are probably not aligned with what the needs of industry are.
Okay.
And that's where I think as industry, we need to be active in the education space.
Yeah. So people are coming out not job ready.
Yeah, but it's very hard. It's
very hard.
Yeah, it's a moving body of knowledge.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm interested in things like cybersecurity apprenticeship models, right? Where it's a blend of classroom, theoretical, but also practical.
Have you seen them work?
I've only seen the cyber apprenticeship model from Siemens, and like I said, I've been talking to, say, TAFE, Queensland Government, those kind of organisations, and there's definitely programs being developed, and I think it's quite exciting. I think, again, to that point of we need to understand, like, how much capacity do we have as industry to bring these people on board? Yeah. But I mean, I would recommend the salary guide from Decipher Bureau.
Yep.
It's just been going up and up and up, right? So I think there's actually...
It has for the last 2-3 years it went up and up, but it's plateaued.
And I think that gives a good business driver imperative to build a pipeline. So like I think, as I mentioned, my case, I was a scholarship recipient with QR.
Yeah.
And they paid for part of my university, graduated, went to a grad program. Fantastic opportunity.
Yeah, but it's not easy for organisations to do that.
No, it isn't.
And it's not that common. I know there's graduate programs there, but they tend to be limited. And even with some of the large enterprises that have head offices in Brisbane, they might take on 20 grads across the whole of tech.
So I guess maybe
of which there might be one that focuses on cyber. And
So maybe fly the flag for PowerLink. We actually have a operational technology graduate program.
Okay.
So we actually have 2 grads at the moment. I think we're hiring another 2 or 3, and one of those grads is actually rotating into my team next year, which is very exciting. So
that's great.
Yeah, and I think
so people can. How do they? It's on the website.
There's actually an active campaign at the moment. So if you go, if you just go to the PowerLink website, so powerlink.com.au, under careers, there's a link there.
Yeah. They're going to get swamped now.
Probably. Yeah. So
work with
Sorry,
BFL.
But it's exciting, right?
Yeah.
And I know talking to peers and other, OT, critical infrastructure, there is a desire to actually bring that next generation
which is great.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Do you think there's anything that government can do that would help? Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. And I'd encourage people when, be say, Queensland Government Cybersecurity Unit, or be it federal government, say Australian Signals Directorate, ask. Actually give feedback. So I've personally presented feedback to cybersecurity strategies before.
Yes.
I think one of the biggest things I'd like to see the government do is develop more hands-on training experience. So I always talk about cyber ranges. So I think it'd be great for the government to kind of, be it they partner with a commercial org, or I've had the opportunity to work, say, with some Australian Signals Directorate, ACSC, people to do some hands-on incident response training. Really, really useful, right? So a great way for government to diffuse skills in industry. And things like the JCSC, awesome initiatives, right, of building these spaces where government, industry, education can all collaborate.
Government, industry, education, even engaging with the community as well, which I know is something that...
Definitely, yeah. I think also maybe there's things on, be it, tax incentives or funding programs or... I mean, for example, I know Australian Defence Force, ADF Cyber Gap Year, great initiative, right? I think it's a year where you can work with ADF, get some training, actually work in industry. I think those initiatives are really good because they're great ways for people to get their first start And I know we mentioned on the way up, after a warm-up beer, if you will, how do you actually bring people into that first opportunity is critical, especially if you've studied and you just kind of a square peg, round hole, don't know where to fit. It's very demoralising. Yeah.
Yep, and there's not many, I can say now, in the market, there's not that many new entrants into OT security.
Yes.
And I don't think it's going to fulfill the demand.
Yeah, and there's like maybe some green shoots, but it's still very early days.
Yeah, so more needs to be done.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about the future.
Yes.
Where is operational technology going?
Mm-hmm.
What future opportunities might there be? I know, put the crystal ball out there. What are you seeing happening?
Yeah, it's always dangerous, predicting things.
How do we build resilient operational technology?
Yeah, and I think part of it is thinking about things early in the system process, right? So I talk about, say, threat modeling. I also think application of system engineering into just general, OT engineering and problems is a great thing, right? I think it's also it's an evolving space with vendors, right? So we're seeing, frameworks such as IEC, ISA 62443.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just repeat that. So we see frameworks like ISA, IEC 62443. It gives guidance to vendors on how to build secure industrial automation control systems, IACs. We're also seeing great projects like, say, the PLC Top 20. So I'm sure people, listeners, if you will, would be familiar with, say, OWASP Top 10, those kind of things.
Yes.
There's a version for industrial control systems called the PLC Top 20. So if you go to plc-security.com, there's a whole PDF and toolkit to help you embed security into automation logic. Interestingly, things like cloud, right? So how can we introduce better, secure, evergreen supported systems with cloud? It's a really interesting opportunity. And I think I'm quite excited about how we're embedding security thinking into engineering risk management. So we talk about things like security PHA reviews, which is a process hazard analysis. It's a structured risk assessment for process safety for engineering. There's an addition to that called a SPUR, or a security PHA review, which looks at those scenarios and applies a cybersecurity lens, which is quite exciting. And there's other frameworks like Idaho National Laboratories, CCE.
Yep.
I think it's consequence-driven cyber-informed engineering, something like that. Cyber-informed. Let me think. I think it's cyber-informed consequence-driven engineering. These are engineering frameworks to remove cybersecurity vulnerabilities, right, from a system planning view. So it's quite an exciting time, and I think we've probably moved through that wave of awareness. I think back to many years ago for me, and it wasn't really on the radar, to now people know it's a problem. Yeah. So we're probably now at a point of, well, what do we do about it?
What do we do about it? So what, 10 years, 20 years from now, where will we be at then?
I would hope we have systems that have been designed to consider the appropriate threat models for where systems are built, right? I think we come back to those challenges of the life cycle. So how are we building systems with, say, a 30, 50-year life cycle built on common off-the-shelf IT systems with maybe a 5 to 10?
Yes.
And how do you operate those in a cyber hostile environment? I quite like, say, the Australian military have a concept of cyber worthiness. Yeah. So in normal military domains, they talk about, say, airworthiness or seaworthiness. There's now cyber worthiness, which is, can this system operate in a hostile cyber environment? So how are we actually building into systems cyber resiliency rather than buy a thing and wrap security around it?
Yeah, which is what's been happening for the last 5 years, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
10 years.
Much longer than that.
Yeah, 20 years, 30 years. Yeah.
And in the past, the air gap, sure, they were isolated. They weren't really isolated, but everyone thought they were isolated.
Yep.
It's very clear today they are not isolated. And, short of you're a nuclear reactor and you have a data diode, there will be a connection.
Yes.
So there's no air gap.
And okay.
That's one for Alex near me.
Well, thanks very much, Bruce. I mean,
Yeah,
it's been
thanks.
really interesting talking to you today, and I think we've identified that it's an exciting area, and there is a lot happening, and certainly a lot of opportunity. And I presume you're happy for people to reach out to you
definitely.
directly.
Yep. So just LinkedIn, Bruce Large.
Yep.
No doubt you'll probably tag me on the video.
I will certainly tag you on the video.
Excellent. And always happy to have a chat. Also, I think, as I mentioned, involved with ASA, Deputy Chair of the Queensland Group.
Yep.
So that's a great way to come along, meet people. We do actually sometimes have OT topics, blue team topics, and trying to build some more social breaking into cyber events so people can kind of have that forum.
Yep.
I know you definitely give a lot back to the community too, Paul, so awesome work. It can be tiring for us.
It can be tiring.
So it's actually good if we all just meet in one place.
Yeah.
And it's just a great way, I think, for... I think back to... I've been a member of ASA for over 15 years, and when I started, say, Adam Cunningham or Lahani Rafidi, David Manfield, like all these...
Some big name shout outs.
Yeah, some legends in the industry.
Yeah.
That made me feel really welcome, right? And I want to give that back to people and make sure they know, I'm interested in this, and it's a cool way to actually, it's a very interesting industry that, I've worked in, say, network engineering and other industries, and the community vibe of cybersecurity is very different. It's really good. I love it,
It's exciting. There's some great people.
Big personalities, lots of passion.
Yeah. And lots of growth happening.
Definitely. But it's been a pleasure. Thanks.
Yes, thank you very much. And just finally, I think everyone wants to know, what does BFL stand for?
You can probably, it's Bruce, so you can probably guess what the F means, and the L is large. I do know some people say Bruce Fantastic Large, but how about, if you come see me, I'll let you know what it is.
Thanks for your time, Bruce.
Excellent. No, thank you, Paul, and awesome work.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.